the main focus going into the draft since we have 10 picks available?
Defensive playmakers. That's been the drum I've been beating all offseason. I'm going to continue doing that. If the Steelers want to use some of the 10 picks in a package to move up to get defensive playmakers, that would be okay with me. If the price is too high, it's okay with me if they would use all 10 picks because in addition to defensive playmakers, the other thing I will say about this particular Steelers team is that it is not one player away. Not even close.
It's not, but one really good one would help. And,
absolutely.
The focus for me would be the defensive player you're talking about, and since there are 10 picks, why not move up, right? It's only too expensive if you perceive it to be.
I'm not giving up my second round pick though to move up.
Well, all right. Well, how about would you give up if you don't want to give up your second round pick?
Definitely not.
Would you give up both thirds and a fifth?
To go up how high and get whom?
Number 10.
To get the kid from LSU?
Well, at number 10, I think that gets you a shot at the kid from LSU, and that definitely gets you the kid from Michigan.
I'm not making that move until the 9th pick is turned in.
So you know exactly who
So I know exactly who I'm, yeah. And if it's the kid from LSU, Devin White, yes. If it's the kid from Michigan, I'm not saying no, but I'm not as enthusiastic a yes as I would be for the kid from LSU.
Troy Polamalu, and this was a few years ago, and they went from 27 to 16, cost them a third and a sixth, in addition to flopping once. This is moving up from a little closer, but trying to get a little higher. It's a little more expensive, but I think that expensive thing is relative. Again,
I get it.
A third and a sixth for Troy Polamalu. How'd that work out?
Worked out great, but I'm just talking about the price to move up because nobody knows, whether it's Troy Polamalu or Kellen Winslow Jr. On the day that they're picked. But
So it makes it exciting, Labs.
When you're moving up only to 16, I understand it's 11 spots. 27 to 16 is 11 spots. 11 spots from 20 puts you into the top 10. Yeah. And I think the price for that is going to be more.
Oh, no question. No question.
So,
I think it's going to cost you, I used the 10th pick as kind of my launching point.
Hypothetical.
I think Denver is likely to move. Denver could use picks, new coach. They're trying to replenish the roster. They got their quarterback, Joe Flacco. So just using number 10 and using that chart that all the picks are valued and it's supposed to add up, or sometimes you got to give the team maybe just a few more points to grease it. But they could get away, I think, with trading the 20th pick, then both thirds and a fifth, or they could trade the second round selection, a fourth round selection, and that fifth round pick they got from the Raiders for Brown.
Not to burst your bubble, Kevin Colbert says they don't use that chart.
Well, what if the team you're trading with does?
I understand that.
Then it kind of forces your hand. So it does not burst my bubble.
Okay.
Kevin Colbert
see.
will never burst my bubble.
Thursday will be interesting.
Nor will you. My bubble is undeniable.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
It's not always right, but it's undeniable.
All right, moving on. This is from Blaze0207. Is there a position you guys can see the Steelers taking multiple players? Get in your crystal ball.
I mean, again,
what do they call those guys that cover the receivers? Defensive backs.
Playmakers.
Yeah,
defensive playmakers. But I'm looking for very specific kinds of defensive backs.
Ones that get the ball?
Yes, guys who can make plays on the football. 8 interceptions is not enough. 8 interceptions, 15 takeaways, which is what the Steelers
there. 8 is not enough.
8 is not enough. 8 interceptions, 15 takeaways. That's what the Steelers managed last year. You cannot contend for a championship with a defense that puts that kind of production on the board in terms of taking the football away. It's not good enough. And so the kinds of cornerbacks, safeties, defensive backs in general that the Steelers need to look for now are the kinds of guys who make plays on the football. This isn't any longer the fire zone defensive scheme, where those kinds of guys needed to be a little bit more physical, solid in run support, disruptive in terms of engaging receivers when the ball was snapped and then playing zone. It's different now. And so you need guys who can make plays on the ball. You could win Super Bowls with Ike Taylor and Brian McFadden, and the Steelers did, and they won a lot of games with those kinds of guys. No shade on them, but it's different now. It just is, and you need guys who can make plays on the ball, and those are the kinds of defensive backs I'm looking for, and it wouldn't bother me at all if they picked a couple, 3 of those.
All right, Prisuta, I want to jump to your favorite time of the season, which is?
No, I agree with him on all that. And 8 is not enough.
Okay. Your favorite time of the season is?
Football and shorts?
Go a little bit further.
Preseason.
No, go back a little bit.
Training camp.
Duh. Yes. Okay. Training camp question from
Favorite time of the
Judith.
year. That's what you threw me off.
All right. Fine. What do you think the chances that Mason Rudolph will beat out Josh Dobbs this year in training camp?
I really haven't contemplated it. I think Mason Rudolph was brought here for a reason. I think Josh Dobbs has some value, but I think Rudolph is a better bet to be the long-term potential successor to Ben Roethlisberger. So I think the odds of that are, I would put them a little over 50%.
Okay. All right, let's move on. There's a bunch of questions, so I do want to get to them. This is just from SNU member. Labs, how do you think the team did during free agency this offseason? How do you see the new guys fitting in and contributing?
Well, I like what the Steelers did in free agency when you look at the 3 major signings: Steven Nelson, Moncrief, and Mark Barron. Because when you look at what the Steelers had as free agency began, I won't say they filled the need that they had for a cornerback who can make some plays on the ball, a wide receiver with a little bit down the field speed, and a hybrid safety linebacker guys. I won't say that those guys are the answer there, but at least those guys fit into those 3 areas that it's unquestionable that the team needed to fortify itself in those areas. So I think it takes a little bit of the urgency off in the draft in this sense. You don't have to reach for one of those things in the first round. If there are better players at one of the other 2 areas, then you can go there, because you can line up with, if you had to play a game tomorrow, which you don't, you could line up with what you have now. You don't want to be in a position where we don't have a hybrid linebacker on our roster, so we can't play any of those things. The Steelers have one of those in Barron. They have I believe a guy who's a starting cornerback opposite Hayden in Nelson. Moncrief, I don't know that he's a Pro Bowl kind of receiver right now, but he is a guy who I think is representative NFL talent for the position. And so I like what they did, given the context of what we're talking about, I think.
Yeah, I think all 3 of them will contribute. I think you are better with those guys than without them, but I don't think at any of those positions are you saying, okay, that's fixed.
Right.
Move along. I mean, you still need to look at all those positions in the draft, and I expect them to. Nelson, to your point, he plays the ball. He does give up some catches, but he also gets his hands on the ball to help make up for it. Moncrief, I think his track record, big guys that can run, they're not, you don't just go out to the big guy that can run store.
Tree.
And he has done better this just in with a really good quarterback than when he's got a not so really good quarterback throwing it to him. Barron, I'm curious about Barron. I've heard some people speculating that he's not really a man-to-man coverage guy anymore. I don't know how quote-unquote hybrid he is, but he does have the reputation of playing sideline to sideline and being a great blitzer. So if he can impact the pass rush game that way, they've had a bunch of sacks the last couple of years, but you could always use a few more of those.
Timely ones. The thing about Barron, he may not have been in coverage as a safety, but I think when you move him down as an inside linebacker, the kinds of people that he might be asked to cover are a little bit different than the caliber of receivers that you might be asked to cover as a safety. And so, plus he played at Alabama. I mean, do we need anything else?
Another guy from Alabama.
There you go.
All right, we just want to
Roll
let you
Tide.
know very quickly, our keyword today is off-season, so you can enter the keyword off-season at SteelersNationUnite.com to earn your extra yards for joining us today.
How many yards you get for that?
Maybe 10? I don't know.
Maybe 10.
First time.
10
I was
yards,
right.
tough to get.
I know.
Take
Our
10 yards
producer
when
just
you
said
can get
10
them.
is correct, so there you go. All right, our next question is from Steel Mike. What can you tell us about the new additions to the coaching staff, Terrell Austin, Eddie Faulkner, and the promotion of Sean Surratt?
That's the interesting one, isn't it? They didn't waste any time doing that.
No.
And he's been here, knows the drill, knows the players. The Steelers obviously know Sean Surratt. He got the upgrade as soon as Mike Munchak left. But, man, you don't just go down to the Munchak store either. And I'm really curious to find out how this impacts the team because Mike Munchak, the unofficial run game coordinator, according to Ben Roethlisberger, I think it was our colleague Craig Wolfley who coined the phrase Munchak's millionaires. Taking these guys with no track record, and they get thrown in the lineup because of injury, and he gets them ready to
Beecham.
He gets
yeah.
them ready to
Chris
play, and
Hubbard.
then they go somewhere else and get
Make
a
a lot
big
of money.
contract. I mean, that's there's clearly confidence in the replacement, but boy, that is a heck of a guy to replace.
The guy that's interesting to me is Terrell Austin. This is a guy with coordinator experience, defensive backs coach. I continue to think that it's a good method or plan for the Steelers to add, when they're adding to their defensive staff, to not only add guys, Terrell Austin was a college coach, which kind of indicates that he was capable of being a teacher. He had some different stops along the way in the NFL as a position coach, but he was also a coordinator. And so what that indicates to me is that on Tuesday nights when they're all getting together to do the game plan, Terrell Austin had a pretty good run as a defensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. And I don't know that,
Not a lot of people have.
I was just going to say, I don't think anyone looks at the Lions roster and says, well, shit, with that talent, anybody could do that job. So, you get some new ideas, a guy who has been some other places in the league. He has seen some things happen from a different perspective a little bit. I'm excited about his addition.
You know what?
And
What
the other
really excites me about his addition, I think it was you pointed out from the NFL meetings. He's going to be involved in the replay.
well, that's what I was just
Mike
going to say.
Tomlin said it,
He's
up in
going
the
to
booth.
he's going to be in the booth, and so
I believe the last successful replay challenge was the Miami playoff game a couple years ago. A Le'Veon Bell run for no gain was replayed into a 1-yard touchdown.
And you're, of course, assuming that the guys that make the calls on the field get it right all the time.
I knew where you were going there.
So let's just skip over that because anyway.
Well, I'd like to see the replay process
I would-
contribute more.
Or I would like to see an assistant coach on the defense who has something to do with the coverage be able to access the perspective from up above, because I think that has some value. You and I watch a lot of football from on the field at St. Vincent College, and that ain't a real good vantage point.
It's better up top.
Yes, it is. So,
It's easier to see replays up there too.
if they run them.
Well, sometimes they got TVs up there and
If they
they
run 'em.
run everything
Yeah.
more than the jumbotron.
So you see that where you're sitting in the press box, you see those replays all the time quick.
All the time.
Yeah, you're full of it.
All right, moving on before we get a little testy here. Quest for 7 says, what do the pre-draft visits for college players entail?
It's not a workout. It's an information gathering thing a lot of times. Some guys who were maybe not at the combine didn't take a physical. Sometimes they bring guys in to take a physical. Sometimes they bring guys in who weren't at the combine, weren't invited to the combine. You get to talk to them a little bit, spend a little time with them. You get 15 minutes with these guys at the combine, and they interview 60 guys.
It's like a car wash.
Right, it's like a car wash. So what kind of one-on-one time you might be able to have with the guy? Could you put him on the board? Can you really assess his football IQ? Those kinds of things. And if maybe you had a little bit of time with him at the combine. Maybe you had a little bit of time with him at his pro day, and there's something that piques your interest about the guy, and you want to get to know him a little bit more. Bring him in for a pre-draft visit. It's often seen as these are the guys they're going to pick, but I can tell you, I just went through my lists yesterday. 1 or 2 guys per year.
But you know what that list is good for?
Later on down the road.
Steven Nelson,
Yep.
Dante Moncrief,
Oh, yeah.
those guys were all pre-draft visits.
You're looking to
Oh, yeah.
trade. Yeah.
Well, that's
Information's good. More times you can
because
talk to a guy, the more times you can see a replay.
I get
More
it.
is better.
Joe Hayden was a pre-draft
Yeah.
visit in 2010, and
They knew they weren't getting him.
no chance,
Yeah.
no chance. And so I as you said, more information is good. Doing your due diligence, collecting intel, all of that stuff, but it's not necessarily a roadmap to who they're going to pick over the 7 rounds of the ensuing draft.
All right. Samantha wants to know, guys, are there any returning veterans that you think are in make or break mode when we get to training camp?
I guess make or break is relative. I don't know if she means are they going to get cut if they don't have a good
Or is it make or
preseason,
break
or is it
starting job?
Is it their last year? So, Bud Dupree's got 1 year on his contract left. He plays a
Nice contract.
Nice contract. He plays a high-profile position from which they need a lot of production. And I just think, what are we talking about? They got to go get corners. They got to go get safeties. They got to go get inside linebackers.
Defensive playmakers.
They've already done that in free agency. We're still talking about it in the draft. So if I played one of those positions, I might be thinking, and I was already here, I might be thinking, hey, maybe I should step it up a little bit because they keep talking about my position as an area of need.
Artie Burns.
Yeah.
I mean, you listen to what Mike Tomlin said from the owners' meetings. Are you kind of disappointed in Artie Burns was one of the questions, I'm paraphrasing, and his answer was no kind of about it, disappointed. So Artie Burns, number 1 pick. I think he's going into his 4th season. The Steelers have a decision to make eventually about do they want to exercise that 5th-year option, which, as you were mentioning, Bud Dupree, which they did. That's a $9 million price tag. It's a big number.
But then he's kind of now playing for a job either here or elsewhere.
Right. No, I get it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would put Artie Burns in that category.
All right. Black and Gold for Life wants to know how you feel about the stability along the offensive line, particularly the right tackle.
Yeah, I kind of addressed that a little bit. We were talking about
Right.
Munchak and Sean Starrett. I think right tackle's fine. It was fine last year. There are capable guys. Somebody that starts is, let's assume it's Filer because he did more of it last year.
A Corafor.
Will there be depth beyond the 5 that start and B.J. Finney? How ready will those guys be if they're called upon?
Gerald Hawkins.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy we keep hearing good things about
Right.
and keep not seeing play.
Right.
You wonder, if they're, what do they usually keep, 8, 9?
Yeah.
How many of those guys are going to be guys you can trust and put in the game and win with?
Well, and I also think, when you're looking at DeCastro, Pouncey, Ramon, these are highly talented players, decorated, but they're also getting older. And so, that's why, I would say to fans, if you, one of the arguments against bunching a bunch of these picks up and trading them for one guy is if you keep your 2nd round pick in those 2/3, you can use one as they did last year on a developmental offensive lineman who now looks like a guy, Chooks Okorafor, who could, give you quality minutes as one of the first 5 guys. And so you could use a 3rd round pick again and continue to feed the pipeline of these younger guys who, you need maybe a season or 2 to develop them. Not that they're going to take DeCastro's job or Pouncey's job or any of that stuff right off the bat, but you want to continue to have the pipeline, filled with legitimate NFL caliber talent, I think, along the offensive line. So
I want to take some of that stuff and shove it in the pile And get that inside linebacker.
That's what you like to do.
It is.
I mean, let's go. I'm all in. Roll the dice one time.
Yours in. Throw
Yeah,
something in.
right.
Shove it into the middle.
Here's a hair tie.
That's what he likes to do. But I'm here to tell you that's not.
Yeah, that's me, Mr. Vegas. If we were in Wisconsin, I'd have to make your bunk. But
But I mean, again, I'm not saying that I wouldn't make the trade, but I'm saying that if it doesn't get made, or in considering the trade, you have to consider all aspects of it, and not having picks to add to the offensive line depth. Yeah.
All right, we have time for two more because we're getting a little haywire
and
here.
let me just tell everyone, if he was really any good at this, he wouldn't be sitting here doing this. Okay?
All right, Labs, this one is specifically for you. Mark wants to know, how did it feel when you were first asked to be part of the Hall of Honor committee?
It was really kind of humbling for me anyway that Art Rooney II thought enough of my opinion to consider it for something like this, because these are the kind of things that I know are very important to the Steelers, their legacy, their history. The Rooney family has been the ownership of this franchise from the beginning, and so this Hall of Honor thing is something that has been in the thought stages for a long time. I remember the ambassador was always against the Ring of Honor. I don't know if it was because it was a Dallas Cowboys thing or what, but again, it's humbling, and it also lets me know that I'm old, because to have been around to see as much as I have, you have to have been here for a while. That's what Dan Rooney always used to say, that when they start giving you lifetime achievement awards, all that means is you're really old.
All right, we're going to end on this question from Steelers Country 6. Let's forget about all the drama for a second. Do any of you plan on going to Kennywood to ride the new Steel Curtain roller coaster?
no.
No.
Yes.
Never been on a roller coaster. Never will get on one.
Come on, Prisuta.
I used to be a roller coaster guy, to his point about getting older.
You guys are no fun.
Oh, no, that is not true. You've been on the road with me. I just don't ride the roller coaster.
Yeah, right.
I just don't do it.
All right, maybe we'll get you like a walking pass so you can just walk around Kennywood, eat the potato patch fries. No? All right, you guys are out.
Not really an amusement park guy anymore. There's other ways to have fun.
Okay. All right.
Bob,
well,
back me up on this.
Sorry, Steelers Country 6.
What's the name of that street?
They're
You know
not
what?
in.
When we go to Nashville in the
right.
preseason, I will show you how the other ways to have fun, how much fun those ways can be.
The
All
21 and over version of
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Well, speaking of going on the road, in case if anybody did not know, tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we will know the full regular season schedule. So we will know what is happening with our lives, the team's lives, fans' lives, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of you on the road. So 8 p.m. tomorrow. Mike Prisuta and I will break it down for you. Labs will have a fantastic article.
I'm
And
going to
then
make a bold prediction that there will be 8 home games and 8 road games.
you should bet that.
Roll the dice on that.
All right. On that note, we thank you so much for joining us today for the Steelers Nation Unite
All
Huddle
in.
presented by Hyundai.
Straight
Bye.
up.
He's
Straight
wrong.
up.
Don't forget, the keyword is off season. I apologize for both of them. We'll
even
probably
throw
do
the
this again
microphone
soon,
in.
though. But
Trade it all,
oh
baby.
boy, here we go. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you all next time.